ashes. The spirits light up the night, looking down.
Now, from the Untold Radio Network, it's Untold Radio AM with Doug and Alex Hajicek.
Hey ho, I had to get my mic turned on.
How's it going?
It's going good. I actually got out of the house today.
What'd you end up doing?
I just went for a long bike ride. It was so nice. Oh my God, it was so nice out today.
It was.
Normally I'm stuck, Wednesdays working on show stuff.
So it's nice to get out.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so amazing. So hello, all of our live audience. All glad that you could make it here. I think we got a pretty packed show tonight with tech breakdown. We have clips. We have Mark Lenu, and we're going to dig into Mark's brain, like deep.
Perfect.
I'm not skimming. I'm digging. No skimming. Okay. So what do we have? See, this is episode 203 tonight?
203.
That's a lot.
2.
That's a lot. 203. Won't be long before we'll get to 204 next week. Anyhow, it's a big smear. Goes quick. Anyhow, so we're live. Just to remind everybody, and if anybody is listening to this on Facebook and they want to join over here, they can chat live. Can you chat from Facebook live into our chat, or do they have to be in YouTube?
They can do Facebook or YouTube.
Oh, you can. I didn't know. See, I don't know. I have no idea. Anyhow, so a little more on Mark, just to get you excited. So Mark is a tech inductee into NASA's Hall of Fame, which is, could you imagine that?
That's incredible.
It really is. I think so, especially since he's done so many other things. I mean, he's into nano sensors and things.
He sounds like quite the Renaissance man.
Yeah. And I'm actually in Tech Breakdown, we're going to talk about not so nano sensors. Well, they're nano to me, but they're not truly nano. But we're going to talk about microcams for doing research. Yeah. Anyhow. So what do we got? Blah, 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 blah. We finished the Bigfoot baby.
You did. That's awesome.
Yesterday, finished filming it. I believe it was yesterday. Or was it? No, it was Monday. I always forget. So it was Monday. We finished it up. Got to test it. And then the other night, I'd set it in my studio. Right? And I'm walking back by at like 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
And I see this thing out of the corner of my eye and forgot completely about it. It gave me one of those, those jumps. I jumped and I went, oh crap, it's the Bigfoot baby. It took me a few moments to remember. But it just looked like this, realistic little hairy man standing there looking at me. Like, and you know me, I'm a little jumpy. So anyhow, but that's done in the can. Completed the filming too, and now the deployment is next. And of course, we're going to deploy it up at Snow Grove first.
That's exciting.
We're thinking on bringing the Starlink backpack up there. We might do some live Untold Radio stuff in the middle of the night from up there.
That would be exciting.
We'll see. It depends on we can get the internet working.
The signal, yeah.
Yeah. How much power we have and whether the generator works during the day, and there's a lot of ifs, right?
A lot of ifs, yeah.
But anyhow, it's been crazy. We went through a lot of obstacles to get that thing working. And thank you to Jeff Perella. I mean, the whole thing is masterminded by him, and he did an amazing job. He really did. Taking probably an insurmountable project that would have cost probably $10,000 and turning it into a very a low budget, but with great results. I mean, it's better than I could ever expect. What's
Sounds
really
like
cool too, it's like we can program different sounds and do it along with all the movements. I mean, just the mouth has got like 3 or 4 solenoids just to give it different expressions.
sounds very alive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyhow, but thank you, Jeff, for all your hard work.
Thank you,
We're
Jeff.
looking forward to having success with it. You never know. This could be a game changer. These things have come on the porch. Last year, they came on the porch twice. Well, this thing's going to be on the porch.
How are they going to
They'll be
resist?
whimpering and crying for attention. So what's going to happen? I don't know.
Well, hopefully it doesn't set them off.
I can tell you that. It's not going to be red. It's not going to be below my window. No way.
Right below your window.
We're going to have to flip for that one. We'll have to flip for it. So, okay, but something weird happened. One of the reasons I was so jumpy is the night before, just Sunday night, I worked till about 3 a.m, and which is actually quite early. 3 a.m, that's pretty early for me. No pun, right? Early. And so I quit, and I'm going to have a little bowl of Cocoa Krispies, a very tiny little Amazon bowl. Where I thought they were big bowls, but they're tiny bowls. Yeah.
Yep.
So I pour my cereal and my milk, and I'm just going to have this little light, it's Rice Krispies, basically, a little light snack. And I'm eating, and then I hear some action in the studio, like sounds coming from the studio. I'm sitting in it. It's dark, all else is dark. A couple of lights are on, real dim. And it's dark, and I'm like, I stop eating my cereal, and I'm like listening. And then I hear it again. I'm like, holy crap, that's not my imagination. It's quite loud and it's quite distinct. I'm hearing like snapping, snap, 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 kind of irregular, but constant. And that goes on again. And it stops and it starts again. And I this time I'm like, I better look. Maybe something's on fire or something shorting out. So I come around, I look, I turn the light on low. Then I look in the studio and I don't see anything. Everything looks great, normal. Shut the light off, go back, finish my little cereal. And then I quickly went to bed. I did not want to hang out after that. The next morning, I figured out what it was. I came in the office, because it was Monday, and I had to get ready for that shoot to film the Bigfoot baby. So I come in Monday, and the Minnesota Iceman, which is mounted on foam core, in my studio here, it's about, 30 inches tall, maybe 14, 15 inches wide. But it's on foam core. And it's on that Velcro stuff, it's got the fingers that lock together.
Yeah, the fingers.
That's how it's held up. With like 6 of those. There's no way that thing could come undone. That's what I was hearing, that thing getting pulled off the wall.
Oh, geez. How could that
There's no
happen?
other explanation for it. It was being pulled off the wall. It's the exact sound that I heard that it makes when I pull it off. I'm looking at it. It's right over there in the corner. It's back up. But there's no
Spooky.
way. That thing doesn't even weigh. Oh, it's probably like 2 ounces. And that stuff will hold 100 pounds.
Yeah, and it's just some little foam core.
But it was the crackling. So anyhow, that's my weird story of this week. Jesus. I have no explanation. But what was
Spooky.
interesting, while I was eating my cereal, I was scrolling through TikTok, looking at Bigfoot stuff, And then that gets ripped off the wall, which I consider a hoax. And it's just symbolic to me.
It is symbolic.
It got torn right off the wall. Coincidence? I don't know. We'll never know, but it was sure interesting. And then speaking of being startled and so on, there was a couple, I just heard about this story today, a couple in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Apparently, they were on ghost town trails between Ebensburg, PA, and Antiglow, PA. Those are some spooky names. And it says this woman writes that it says, let me get a drink of water. It says, while my boyfriend and I were biking, keep in mind, I've been pushing e-bikes, people on bikes. They were on bikes. They were biking on the Ghost Town Trail near Ebensburg, PA. We saw a Bigfoot come about 150 yards in front of us. He was walking along the trail towards us. So picture this thing walking towards you. So we couldn't see his face because when he saw us, he turned very quickly and then walked into the woods. We were shocked at what we saw. As we went by, we looked into the woods and didn't see anything. We didn't stop, but we did, but then continued on until we finally stopped to talk about what we saw. So they just kept going, right? And it says we didn't get a look at the face, but as he was walking, you could see how big the stride was, and there was a huge space between the legs as it walked.
Terrifying.
Cool. Yeah, my point is being on bikes. There's that element of surprise.
The
so
element of surprise.
They would have had a motorcycle dash cam on their bikes. We'd probably all be enjoying some really cool, authentic footage.
Some really cool footage.
Yeah. So once again, get your e-bike, get some motorcycle dash cams installed, and start using it. It's very cool. Doesn't always have to be at night. It could be broad daylight. Stuff happens. And that is compliments. I got that off Bigfoot Believers group and the Cryptid Collective Research. So that's where that was posted.
That's an awesome story. It just goes to show you we just need more e-bikes out there.
Yeah, well, I think that you could get lucky on those. Anyhow, did you hear about the hydrothermal explosion in Yellowstone?
No, tell me about it.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay. So there was a hydrothermal explosion in Biscuit Basin, Yellowstone National Park, and apparently kind of blew apart the boardwalk. I mean, this was quite an explosion. I sent you footage of it. Nobody was hurt. Like nobody.
Thank God.
But this is, they said this happens maybe every 40 years. So people are running, but there were other people that were filmed they were just strolling. Not only would I ran, I would get in my car and just kept driving until I got home. I would have drove all the way back to Minnesota at 100 miles an hour.
Right. They're not.
The big one's going to blow, right?
Man.
So
that's a little too close for comfort.
A little bit. So apparently the U.S. Geological Survey said there were no injuries, at least not immediately reported. And Biscuit Basin, as well as its boardwalks and parking lot, are closed. Thank goodness. Apparently it's 2 miles northwest of Old Faithful. If you want to go there and get blown up, go ahead.
No, thank you.
Volcanic activity in Yellowstone region remains at normal levels. And I'm going, yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking. And they find a big fault too in Wyoming. There's a new fault that's been posted quite a few times, and it keeps getting taken down.
A new fault. A big crack in the ground in Wyoming. So, all right. So we got that out of the way. And then speaking of explosions, there was a big meteor that exploded over New York City at 38,000 miles an hour. Broad daylight. It was a daylight fireball. Now, is the daylight fireball that thing that looks like a seagull, or is it that little light behind the seagull? Or is that not a seagull? I have no idea. Maybe the thing behind the seagull?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's the picture that came with the article. I don't know. Don't ask me.
Not a great picture.
No. Oh, yeah, I've got a close-up. I think that it looks like a seagull carrying a fish. No, I think that's the fireball. The other one in the background's a jet.
Oh, yeah.
No, that is the fireball. I think. Or that's just a seagull with 2 wings.
Oh, looks like a seagull.
That's just a seagull. What do you think, people? Leave a comment. I have no idea. But anyhow, NASA said it does not track small meteors at significant distances from Earth, but individuals in New York and New Jersey reported witnessing this event. They say it was a small meteor. Once again, I always think, yeah, right. Responsible for a big fireball. Little meteors don't make big fireballs, do they?
No.
Over New York City. So anyhow, if you want to look for that, Google it up, take a look at it. And then there was rare footage taken of another uncontacted indigenous tribe in Peru, which I still find fascinating that there's people living out there. You know, it gives us hope for Bigfoot, right?
Right. If these people can go so long without being detected.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is okay with sound. You can actually turn it up.
Zero indigenous people. They live in the Peruvian Amazon, quite near the border with Brazil. You can see around 50 people.
I'm liking their haircuts.
And they're all men or older boys. That's only a small part of their total population. We believe that there are up to 750 Mashco Piro people altogether throughout their territory. And what makes this concerning is that it's very close to an area where the Peruvian government has sold off the rainforest for logging concessions. And
Ooh, that's not going to work good.
Coming out like this in these large numbers, partly because they're basically being pushed to the edges of their
Okay, that's enough. We don't want to overstep everything here. We're short on time. We're going to rush. But anyhow, it's pretty cool. Yeah, loggers and tribes like that are not going to be a good mix.
No.
You would think they could log somewhere else. Next one, sharks off Brazil coast test positive from cocaine. Big surprise. The sharks in the waters off the coast of Brazil are testing positive for cocaine, scientists say. Marine biologists tested 13 Brazilian sharp-nosed sharks taken from the shores near Rio de Janeiro and found they tested for high levels of cocaine in their muscles and livers. So there you go.
Did a bunch just get dumped overboard to get rid of it?
They say it's from excrement, urine, from people that use it.
Oh, wow. Just getting in the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to remember, nothing really goes away, right? You can dilute stuff.
That's true.
You can dump it. You can do this. You can, put it on the ground, on the inland. It's all eventually washes into the ocean. Of course, they make it. They're making it in the rainforest. So there we go. I don't know what they're going to do about that one. Oh, yeah. They said also packs of cocaine lost or dumped by traffickers at sea could also be the source.
So are these like killer cocaine sharks?
That's why I like eating shrimp all the time.
You don't want cocaine with your shark?
No, it's probably full of cocaine.
It's full of cocaine.
The shrimp. I'm joking. It was a joke. It was a joke.
It's a joke.
Yeah. So that's what was that movie? The Cocaine Bear? Whatever.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie? I got through about 15 minutes of it.
Yeah, I fell asleep watching.
Nope, not doing it. And speaking, we were just talking about fireballs and meteors. Let's stump Alex on meteors.
All right, can I cue up that bumper?
Yeah, you can cue it and play it.
All right.
I'm an expert at overthinking things that I shouldn't. You come across as a cool guy, someone is the opposite.
Let's really stump Alex.
You notice, so it's just you in the meteorite picture. It's not me. I'm behind the scenes. I'm the narrator.
The narrator.
I'm the narrator for this crap. Okay. So number 1, all meteors come from comets. Is that true or is that false? All meteors come from comets, true or false?
False.
Alex says false, and he has been stumped. It is true. Please play along. You got to be quick in the chat. So it's true. Meteors originate from comets. As comets move, in their orbit around the sun, they melt and blah, blah, blah. And the rocks and crap the debris comes off the comets. There you go.
All right, what else you got for me?
Number 2. Okay, keep track. I'm going to put an S. Got a number 1 in that. And I'm going to put an R for the ones you get right. Some meteors are millions or billions of years old.
Some are billions.
Billions, huh? Are you sure?
It's got to.
It's billions, yes. They are billions of years old, not millions. I did say some. They're not all billions.
Yeah, right.
But they have aged them all the way to 4.56 billion years old.
It's crazy they can go that far back.
Years, yep. So the ones from Mars that come are only 200 million years old. Oh, yeah, I guess some of those too are 4.5 billion years old too. Okay, meteor showers happens when the Earth passes through planet debris or comet debris. So is it planet debris or comet debris? Meteor showers happen when they pass through planet debris or comet debris. Pick one.
Comet debris.
Correct. So that's Alex got one right. I think you've gotten 2 wrong and 1 right. Okay. Meteor showers are named after their location in space or where they come from down over and over again. So is it from their location in space or the location on Earth, basically? Which one? How are they named?
Location in space.
Location in space is correct. Good job, Alex.
Trying to make Mark proud. At the space stuff.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Mark. I see Mark in the background there. He's laughing at you. I don't blame him. Okay. Meteors can have color, true or false? Or they always just as...
Yeah.
So true?
True.
Gee, you got another one right. This one will screw you up.
Uh-oh.
How many meteors are visible, or how many meteor showers happen every year that are visible? Is it 30, 50, or 390? How many meteor showers on Earth?
390.
390. You have been stumped. It's 30. NASA predicts that as many as 30 meteor showers can be seen from Earth each year and every year. And those showers have been around for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Wow. Sorry, you're 3 and 3 now, dude.
Can I phone a guest?
Okay, yeah, that's what we'll start doing. Phone a guest. I see Loretta had it right. Sly Fox did copy. You copied Sly Fox, I bet, Alex.
He caught me.
All right, next. Some meteor showers have been observed for over, is it hundreds of years or thousands of years or millions of years? Some meteor showers have been observed for hundreds, thousands, or millions of years.
Hundreds.
Wrong. It's thousands. I just told you the answer in the last question. Dork. Okay. My gosh. Pay attention. The International Space Station has protection against meteors or doesn't have anything because nothing can stop the speed of a meteor in space. It has protection, like heavy shielding, or it doesn't.
I feel like it doesn't.
Yeah, because how would they get it up there if it's all weighted down with shielding? And how would you know what direction the damn thing's coming from?
I mean, maybe you could blow it out of the way, but
Oh, it has or has not protection?
no protection.
You are wrong. It has
Oh!
protection.
What's the protection?
It's like some kind of Kevlar. It's like a bulletproof vest stuff. Kevlar.
Wow.
I believe maybe Mark knows better.
Does it work?
Huh?
Does it work?
Well, I would imagine we haven't lost one yet. I don't think anybody woke up with a hole in their head yet on the space station from a meteor coming in.
Right. Right. I
It's a
hope
coating of Kevlar around the International Space Station. Oh, it says it's a foot thick. Holy crap.
Wow.
The Kevlar. That's some thick Kevlar. There you go. Radar picks up thousands or hundreds or just a few. It's a 3-choice answer of meteors every night. Thousands, hundreds, or just a few.
Thousands.
You are right. Good job. Says even though you may not see them, they're always there every night. NASA radars pick up about 12,000 meteors every night. These 12,000 meteors are about the size of a single speck of dust.
Wow.
That's a small meteor.
That's small. Tiny.
All right. A meteor is the same as a meteorite. True or false?
False.
You are right. Who else got that? Nobody. We're going too quick. Many people use the term meteor and meteorite interchangeably, but a meteor is in the in the sky. A meteorite has to touch the ground, right?
So that's when it becomes one.
Then it becomes one, right? Got it?
Got it.
So if you catch it in your hand before it hits the ground, is this a meteor or a meteorite?
It's a meteorite once you catch it.
Oh, okay. All meteors are magnetic. True or false? Don't
False.
not. What?
False.
Is Mark giving you the answers?
I wish.
No, you're right. It's false. Good job. So they're not all magnetic. A lot of them are, though. Apparently, non-magnetic meteorites are quite rare. Is it illegal to buy and sell meteorites in some places? Is that true or false? Or I should say in some countries.
I bet
Is
you
that
it's
true
true.
or false? It is true. Can you guess what country?
The U.S.
No, it's South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah. And I always wonder why there, right?
Right.
How many meteors hit the Earth each day and become meteorites? And of course, this is kind of a bull crap question because if it's a tiny, how would you ever know? But how many meteors hit Earth each day? We have to go by what the scientists say. Is it 17, 33, or 53 each day?
Did you say 17?
17, 33, or 53?
17.
You are right. Jeez, we're having a hard time stumping your butt tonight. Someone's feeding your answers. I just want you got a little earpiece in. That's it. Obviously, it's the vast collection of these meteorites, which are very valuable, are not collected.
We got to farm oil off of them.
I think it would be a fun job, though, to be a meteorite hunter.
Yeah,
oh, God, that would be so cool. All right, let's. John Ayers sent us a dad joke, so I gotta play it. It's pretty good. Can you run video 4?
Yeah, is that video on Facebook?
Yes, it was on Facebook. Aren't you good? We gotta run this.
And loads of rice fell out. I knew right away who sent it. It was Uncle Ben. Did you know that 10 plus 10 and 11 plus 11 equal the same thing? Because 10 plus 10 is 20, and 11 plus 11 is 22.
Did you get that one? It's
What was a pig
22.
covered in ink? Because it lived in a pen.
I can't believe someone came into my house last night and stole all my fruit. I'm peachless.
That
Was
was
a drummer.
bad.
Name his twin daughters.
What?
Anna 1, Anna 2.
Gosh.
Anna 1, 2, 3, 4.
I opened my birthday card and loads of rice fell out. I knew right away who sent it.
Oh, this is repeats.
Yeah, it was from Uncle Ben. Okay. Thank you, John, for that.
Thanks, John.
That load of dad jokes there. I appreciate it. What time do we have? Let's go get once again. Yeah, we kind of run out of time. I really want to do let me do tech breakdown really, really quick because it's really not much to it, but I want to throw up your bumper, whatever we need to do, and I'm
All
going
right.
to go through tech breakdown this week.
Let's do it.
Okay, tonight we are going to talk about little, small, tiny, they're called micro cameras, but microscopic they're not, but they are quite small. We're talking about 1.25 inches. And I happen to have one right here. See it? There it is.
That's
So you get
tiny.
a real idea. Well, it's certainly small enough to hide. Like
Right.
you can hide these really easy. And they do make smaller ones, but the quality diminishes when you get the quality of the battery diminishes. And they have the other one you might want to look at is a buttonhole camera. And once again, these are not for spying on your kids. They're not for spying on your wife. We're talking about Bigfoot research here. They're infrared. They have a pretty long-lasting battery. You can put a micro SD card in. You charge them with a USB-C. What is that? Yeah. What do they call those little micro? Yeah. Is that USB-C? Right? To charge like your Android.
Right.
Isn't that
Yeah.
USB-C? That it charges with that. But look at the picture. See, it says a comparison with 20 cents coin. Now that is exactly the way the manual is written. It will make no sense to you. There's no such thing as a 20 cents coin, right? But I don't know why the Chinese government or the manufacturers do not hire an American to do their instructions. It is such a disaster, the instructions that come with all these Chinese cameras. But what I want to do is just give you confidence to buy one because there's so many things you can do with it. You will figure it out, like even without any instructions. You'll figure it out. You can sync this with your own hotspot. You can do a live monitor. You can just stick a damn micro SD card in it, and you can just place it and hide it in a pop can. Whatever you want to do, hide it out in the woods. Put it in a log. It's small enough you can get really, really creative on it. It is not waterproof, though. Do not, if you're going to leave it out overnight, like all night, you're going to want to do some kind of waterproof. You even just wrap it in like tin foil, like something. Saran wrap would be the way I would do it. Stretch saran wrap.
Saran wrap.
How would you do it, Alex?
What if you put it in a hole in a tree?
Yeah, we just wrap it in saran wrap probably.
Yeah.
I think it would be good. I think the lens in the front is very waterproof. It's the sides and the charge ports and the buttons that are not. So one side's waterproof, one side's completely waterproof. That's the lens side. The other sides are not. So just wrap it tight with some saran wrap. Done.
Yeah. Done.
But I'm going to tell you, you want to see some nightmare instructions, feel free, knock yourself out because it's bad. I mean, it took me and Jeff using one of these. I think it took us like 2 hours of dinking around with it. to get it to sync up. But you don't need to get it to sync. Don't be afraid. I mean, the actual picture is not bad. It's a good, solid 720 resolution. They always say high def, right?
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I don't expect high def, and we don't need high def. 720 is fine.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's all I wanted to do was just get people coffee. You can get them on Amazon for, they're under $30, and you can probably get them cheaper than that. So these are the buttonhole cameras. So go out. I just think every researcher needs 2 of these. Everyone. No excuse. So much you can do. I mean, I just read a story today where a guy's like, yeah, we had activities. This thing was walking around our tent. It's like, there's no excuse for not having a camera running.
Right. Like you have no excuses at this point.
Yeah, at this point. And I don't either. But yeah, you need, I wouldn't beam the IR light. I'd tape it off and I would use it dark and use natural light. They work great with natural light, moonlight, starlight. And because you're probably not going to have any activity with, the IR light blaring. Because, it's probably like 600 nanometers, very visible. So, all right. That's it. And next week we'll have something else new.
Very cool.
But I do endorse these. Do not endorse the instructions. If you read the reviews, it's funny, Alex. You read the reviews on these things, everybody's like, I'm returning it. This thing's several. I can't get it to work. They're horrible. Like that's why a lot of researchers probably don't buy them. They think it's a scam. They're not a scam. They work.
You just got to figure it out.
Yeah. Invest some time. You'll get it working. You'll get it working. You'll get it working. And you can always just stick the micro SD card in and it works right away. Then it's easy. Just turn it on, pop a new card in and deploy it. And just retrieve it and stick your SD card in your computer and away you go. So you don't need instructions for that, right?
Right.
All right, let's go to a few quick clips and then we're going to bring Mark on.
All right.
No bumper. You just bypass. I love it. You bypassed the bumper, didn't you?
We're just doing it raw.
You screwed up, didn't you? Admit it.
Yeah, I did. You want the bumper?
No, I don't want the bumper. Fine without the bumper. Okay, clip 1. The sound is fine. This is kind of what happens when your dog brings a new friend home. Go ahead and play it. He's kind of looking a little guilty there. Oh, and this is my new friend, Bambi.
No.
God, right through the dog door. That's like, oh my God, dogs are funny.
They are.
My dog was like that. I had a wolf husky hybrid dog, and he would go out and he'd bring in all sorts of little animals. He was all gentle with them all the time. He'd scoop up baby rabbits and bring them in one at a time. And it's like, well, thanks, Lobo. Now I got to deal with this mess. I got to take care of 8 little baby rabbits now. So anyhow, all right, clip 2. Sound is fine. And this is what happened when a whale hits your boat and sinks it. This is real. Isn't that insane?
Oh my God.
I'm not sure exactly. And go ahead and play 2A because that's a wide shot of what, you see it better. Like,
ooh.
I mean, it just barrels on that thing. Do you think whales are learning this behavior? Because there's been so many newspaper articles about whales sinking boats, attacking boats, ramming boats, and sharks attacking outboard motors. It's kind of getting to be a thing.
Yeah,
Starting to wonder. Scary. It's like Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
Yes, exactly. Like the Birds movie.
Definitely. New fear and lock for Alex, at least. All right, clip number 3, no sound. This bird invented the airplane. This bird invented an airplane, no doubt. Gotta watch this clip. It's crazy. The bird. I mean, look at that. He's a passenger. That amazing clip. So I'd say that bird invented the airplane.
That's hilarious.
I wonder if he's giving little voice commands. Left, go left. All right, clip 4. Sound is good. This is just a doohickey thing that jumps up and down. I think it's a soil compactor. It's really cool. And centrifugal force keeps it from tipping over.
That's a pretty cool doohickey.
Mark could explain why that doesn't tip over. It's a doohickey soil compactor. Clip 5. Sound is fine. This is definitely one of God's most interesting primates. A real short clip. This is a proboscis monkey. But I never knew what they did with their nose. Now I know. Play it again. That sound.
What do they do with it? They just
It
blow it?
makes that sound.
What's the sound for?
Yeah, I don't know. Call his girlfriend over. What do you think? What is everything for? Breeding. Isn't that like 90% of everything we have for breeding?
Yeah.
All right. There you go. You answered your own dang question.
Freud was right.
Clip 6, no sound. Yeah, more complex roads are coming. Now they're adding turnabouts, roundabouts everywhere around here in the middle of nowhere. They're putting them in farm fields. I'm like, why? Apparently they must be getting ready for the future. Just watch this. There's no sound, but just watch. These are real roads in China. That's a roundabout, man. They have elevators now in China to take you to the right level, your car. Alex.
This is
Alex, like the
nightmare fuel.
Duluth is kind of like that right there.
Yeah.
About like that. It is. It's nuts. That looks like that could be Duluth, but some of these are insane.
Yeah.
Imagine missing your exit. So, in fact, speaking of Duluth, I went over the Bong Bridge with Jeff. We had to go to Duluth to pick something up. And there's, of course, a roundabout right at the end of the damn bridge. Alex?
Oh, at the end? At the end of the bridge.
Are you even listening? There's a roundabout right at the end of this big, long, multi-mile bridge, right? Bong Bridge goes over Lake Superior. And it's not a fun bridge to go over by any means. It's beautiful, but it's a little scary for the faint of heart. Get to the end of the bridge, and of course, I can't figure out what exit to take on this roundabout. So I figure I can just keep going around. No, you can't go around it twice. So you go back on the damn Bong Bridge.
Oh,
all the way across Lake
no.
Superior
You got to
again.
cross it again.
So miles and miles and miles, cross the damn bridge, and then turn around again and come back, and then finally made it to the right exit. But that's the kind of crap I hate roundabouts.
Yeah. You end up adding an extra 20 minutes to your trip.
Well, they're building one right down the road from me, and there's no reason for it. There's a sod field on one side and a sod field on the other side. What are they getting ready? All it does is slow traffic down. Yeah. And those things are not cheap. It's like 18, 20 million bucks to build one. And yet the bike paths, right? The bike paths, they're all deteriorated and need to be redone. But no, we get another roundabout. So, anyhow. A lot of Californians moving up to Minnesota, I'm afraid.
Just keep adding them roundabouts.
Yeah. Anyhow, clip 7. I was going to rant about something. Sound is fine. You need to get a pair of these. Chicken leg sucks. Now, everybody might know about these. I didn't know they had these. I think it's quite humorous. I think John Ayers needs to get some chicken leg socks. What do you think?
Oh, those are great.
I think Buttworm needs to get some.
Oh, yeah. Wear those around
Is
town.
Buttworm in our chat tonight?
I didn't see him.
What the heck? He's always in chat. Clip 8. Sound is fine. Lots and lots of alligators out for a stroll, Alex. It's insane. Look at this. Watch this footage. Can you imagine canoeing down this
No,
thing?
thank you. Is that what they're doing? That's scary.
Why is it jerky like that? There we go. It's smoothing out. But look at that. As far as your eye can see down that stream, there's alligator heads.
Gosh.
I'd be like, no thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Huh. All right. Enough of that crap. Clip 9. This is a shot of a very, very cute baby flamingo, which is about as rare as a baby pigeon, which nobody's ever seen a baby pigeon. I've never seen a baby flamingo. Here you go. First time for everything. Sound is fine. Doesn't matter, really. Clip 9. Let's check this little dude out.
That's adorable.
He's all feet.
Just making a splash.
Yeah, just like a kid. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's cute.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon, Alex?
Not like that, no.
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon? It's a yes or no question. It's not.
Yeah, I've seen a baby pigeon.
Where did you see a baby pigeon you saw? Where was this?
You know, at the zoo.
You did not. Oh my God. No, you didn't. Clip 10. Sound is good. Sound is needed. This canary whale is having kind of fun with his blob. Turn it up. You gotta turn it up, sir.
Oh, we're topped out.
I can't hear a thing. There it goes. Was a delay in the sound. Play it again. Listen to this. See, he's just having fun with his blob. The blob apparently is what makes the echolocation. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, let's get Mark on.
Let's bring on Mark. Let me introduce Mark. So, Mark Lenu is an author, and he's an inductee to the NASA Space Technology Hall of Fame. Right? I hope to be in there someday. Not. Alex will. An inventor of hyperspectral technology, an entrepreneur of 17 years. And he's been doing stuff with NASA for 9 years now. And he's closing in on his PhD. His current projects include nano sensing, optical sensing, and detection modalities. His latest interests include developing detection system for the field of the paranormal, meaning ghosts, Bigfoot. I guess it would be anything. UFOs, everything puts off something. We all leave them. We all leave a bunch of body dust. You can't enter a room without leaving something behind. So that probably includes ghosts. So that's what he's working on.
That's awesome.
He's also an award-winning songwriter, vocalist, guitarist, and founding member of the rock bands Fiction 6 and Kick the Wicked. And he is a member of the Recording Academy. But we don't want to talk about music, or do we? Well, let's I have a feeling all of these talents kind of come together.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how it works, right? All these interests. They
connect.
Yeah, they all connect. And that's what first question I'm going to ask them. So let's bring on Mark.
Mark, you're a Renaissance man.
How's it going?
There it is. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm living the dream. Somebody's dream.
Yeah, you're living.
Dream yet? I'm living.
Well, you're living my dream. Oh man. Okay. So, is it true that all of your things, including the music, have somehow if one of them was missing, you probably wouldn't be developing new technology. Is that true? Do you think? Or am I completely off?
I think most things are usually interconnected. I think there's usually a linear correlation to all those things and what makes us do the things that we do. So there's probably some truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we are kind of what we think about, what we love. And so, okay. I'm just going to I want to dive right in here to frequencies.
Sure.
Because me and you had a long conversation about frequency infrasound. I believe if Mark nods and said yes, he's willing to work on Legend Science. If he nods and said yes, for the whole world, he's going to be helping with some frequency stuff. We'll just leave it at that. But is it possible? I mean, I hear all these things, and I'm not a scientist by any word, Mark, you would know. But I do hear from people that eventually maybe everything will be done by finding a frequency or cures for diseases, travel, communications, like everything, flight, everything. Is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I'll give you an example actually. So some time back, I was looking at using specific frequency within embedded other frequencies for targeting things like, when people have Alzheimer's or things like that, where you use specific frequencies for medical purposes.
Yeah.
There's also behavioral purposes that are based on frequency. Everything is frequency, everything vibrates. So everything is affected. Even when you look at cells, when you're looking at cells from a microscopic level, they're affected by specific vibrations and things like that. So everything is interconnected in that way. I think that's where everything connects, whether it's from dimensional space to photonic to audio to you have it, it's everything has some vibrational space and the frequencies affect that. So the short answer would be yes. So.
I have a question. Is it okay? Let's say we play music loud.
Mm-hmm.
Is that vibrating electrons on an atom? Or are the atoms kind of in their own orbit and they're not affected by what's going on in the big world?
Yeah. I think there would be some effect on that. I also think specific frequencies would add a different effect. So it just really depends on what you're talking about. It's always based on target. It's kind of like when you're looking at electromagnetics. Some targets you can tell something about them in specific ranges of the electromagnetic spectrum, where others you cannot. Sometimes we have windows. There's absorption bands, like in your shortwave infrared, you have 1440, 1940, and 2500. They're completely absorbed by water, right? So you just kind of have to look at those kind of things and make a judgment about the target and what you're trying to focus in on.
What are the things in frequency, that you're kind of interested in, and what do you think? For applying to the paranormal, there was a discovery that I probably need to share with you, and I can't do it today. But there's some weird thing that we're kind of onto with some weird frequency with Bigfoot sightings that have been recorded, but have been reported back. We even found an article from 1934 that reported it, and I experienced it up at Snell, and we recorded like hours of it. But do you think that there could be a way to attract ghosts, Bigfoots, all these weird UFOs using some kind of dialed in frequency? And so one of the things I'm curious about too, I hate to keep I'm interrupting myself, but a tuning fork probably doesn't get into all the jillions and jillions of sub frequencies, correct?
Sure.
Is it endless frequencies?
Well, you've also have, so more so to look at is how you break up those frequencies. It's like many years ago. Let's just talk about, for instance, we're just going to talk about optical frequencies. years and years ago, we would look for mines with something that we call like a 4 or 5 band filtered system, where we're looking at 30 nanometer full width half max, which means that in the center part of that is 30 nanometers across, which means that you've got a lot of energy across specific wavelengths that go through there. Hyperspectral actually breaks that up into much smaller contiguous wavelengths to where you can measure that at much smaller levels of that frequency across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So again, it comes down to what you're looking for and how you're breaking that down, and how homogeneous you are versus, breaking it down to much smaller.
Well, why don't you explain your, work in that hyperspectral work, and maybe bring it down to a 6th grade level for me?
Sure. So we'll bring it down to this. So the simplest way to look at it is your typical wavelength filtering. Those little filters you would get, that, and just like even these things that you use like on your lights for your stage, you got these gels, right?
Yep.
That is basically, those are bandpass filters. So you might have a filter that's like where grass is healthy during its healthiest periods, about 555 nanometers is where you see the green there, right? Well, that's just one wavelength that has a specific swath of what we call full width half max, 30 nanometers. Well, what we did with hyperspectral, in the old days, we would take like five cameras to look for mines. We just take these Kodak cameras, put them in a Cessna aircraft, and then we would put these filters on these cameras, and then we would take those 5 filters, and that's what we would use to use the math to find the mines, where the soil was disturbed.
Okay.
Well, what we did with hyperspectral instead is we took from 400 to 1,000, for example, nanometers of electromagnetic spectrum. We just would cut that up into really, really small slices across that entire spectrum, where we were getting both the spatial and the spectral information. So you're basically creating a 3D cube. And if you could think about it like a biopsy, so you get this data and you got this cube that's X and Y, where then you have lambda, and lambda is your wavelength. And so basically it's like a deck of cards, and in there you got the pixels from your camera. So if you picked one pixel there, it's kind of like having a spectral biopsy. You push in there, you pull it out, and you've got this spectral curve, but you also have the spatial component of what you see in that image. So what we did is we were able to take all of that mounds of data. Like if I flew over, let's say I flew over an agricultural field with an aircraft, and I scan across there and get this hyperspectral cube, as I just mentioned, that could be like 3 to 4 gigabytes of data. And once you calculate that to floating point, it's twice as big. So you have all of this data that you can calculate and use to find better ways to deal with plants and crop health and things like that.
Could you find pollution, for instance, with that kind of a system?
Sure. What they usually use in that, it would be shortwave infrared is probably a better place to look, because and when you talk about pollution, it really depends on what you're talking about. For instance, we had to fly and do a project over Marshall Space Flight Center, because the rockets that were tested at Stennis and then some that were at Marshall Space Flight Center, where they would have to clean those out with a specific, like benzene and other kinds of chemical materials that they would have to clean it out. Well, they had a leak at the bottom of the vat where they tested the rockets, and it seeped into the swampland. So we had to actually use the hyperspectral to look at the plants to see how the plants were affected. And so it's kind of like a second order way of looking at a problem environmentally of that area. You're not technically pulling the sample from the ground. You're actually looking at it from a ground truth on the ground, then flying over the top and then making like a correlation between what you're seeing on the ground and what you're seeing in the air.
Okay. Could you spot like certain animals if you had the right, hyperspectral camera that, for instance, would be tuned in exactly to the frequency of deer hair or deer fur? Would it be possible to build a camera that would only show deer?
Well, the issue there is that it depends on it's targeted, right? So it's kind of like skin, right? When I know specific biological things about the skin that are affected in the photonic space. Like I know in the near infrared, you can go about 4 millimeters into the skin. So I can see a lot of things that are going on in here, not just the surface of reflection, but I'm seeing the refractance of what comes back out from the skin and the scatter that also occurs. So you might have to polarize that because of the scatter, because especially when you don't have a lot of melanin, you're going to have a lot of scatter on the surface, which is going to hide things like vessels.
Is that going to look for like sun damage and things like that?
Yeah, I've done that with some companies where some of the companies were more like cosmetic companies, and other companies were more like really big drug discovery companies, pharmaceutical, where they would look and see two sides of it. What problems do you actually see that are occurring on the skin? And then also what the treatments do thereafter across time. Yeah. So again, it's so wide open. There's a lot you could do with the technology, but you have to figure out what is your plan and what exactly you're looking for. And then you have to know things about that target that would give you indications in the wavelengths so that you can create like an algorithm to look for those specific things. The problem you have with animals too is canopy. So because imaging has an issue with canopy depending on the length of the wavelength and how it bounces off trees, whether it's wintertime, whether there's leaves. So all those things come into play, and you just really have to put together a strategy and a plan to be able to find what it is you're looking for.
Have you ever met or heard of Alan Sibuzar by any chance?
No,
Minnesota. Okay. I used to work with Alan on hyperspectral lighting and things and cameras, and he actually helped me develop a camera back in 2000 that I put at the bottom of Lake Superior,
right,
to cut through debris, cloudiness, to basically pierce the water. That makes sense. Water piercing technology. This is way back, and I'm sure this stuff's probably pretty common now. Yeah. But then using his technology, I won a Telly Award for the House of Babies that I produced. It was a show for Discovery Health where I had to film babies being born underwater. And they didn't want to do that because they said, well, it looks like a shark attack. Well, I developed this camera that saw through blood. It basically made blood invisible.
Yep. Yeah.
And I won a Telly Award. Well, it was my idea to want to do it, but I'm not the guy that developed the technology. It was Alan Sibuzar. God, Alan passed away, and you guys would be like, oh my God, it'd be a dream to get you two together, because I used to do a lot of projects with Alan. He was an amazing guy. But anyhow, so
it's like me where he would memorize the curves. Like I can walk up to a whiteboard and actually draw it. So this is oxygenated hemoglobin.
No,
and
I have a feeling you're way up.
Map, you would use a 769 dip, and you would then do a ratio across the two curves of oxy versus deoxy.
I have a feeling Alan was, hooked up with somebody like you, because, but the stuff that he would come up with and feed me to try, I could call him with any question, and he'd just make it happen for me. It obviously worked. I did a whole TV show with that technology, and it worked really well.
Well, it would depending on the wavelength. You would have to look at what target you're looking at. Water's different than if you're looking at interstitial tissue, or if you're looking glint off of a wound versus the glint off of the ocean. All those things come into play. How you're filtering it, polarization. Typically in the air, if you're wanting to look through something where you want to look on the other side, that's usually like shortwave infrared. You can use that to kind of look through fog, smoke, through like chimneys and things like that. And then you can see what's on the other side, where visible in the infrared, you can't see through it because of the penetration of the wavelength.
Well, okay. So if I was to I'm going to have brain diarrhea all night. Okay. Just get used to it, Mark. I could send you a bunch of Bigfoot hair. I don't know if you know anything about Bigfoot hair, but it seems to be kind of more hollow. Doesn't have the medulla.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of speculation. I worked with Mike Ann, and Mike had some really cool ideas, because it seems that the hair's got some unique properties in frequency and things it does, and how it reacts to UV light. And there's some interesting thing that we need to kind of bring in the fold of what we know and see if you can go and have one of these maybe holy crap moments.
Sure.
Or,
To
I
give
mean,
you a little bit of
Yeah, go ahead.
bit of background, I actually did some imaging for the FBI where I imaged human hair.
Oh.
And I did it with hyperspectral, and I did clearly see the define between the cortex, the medulla, etc. I saw all of that stuff, and I was able to pull spectra off of it and the spatial information. So I wouldn't think that it would be a problem to look at that to see what the difference would be. And I was just looking under a tip. I was just using a nice mic. I had a Nikon microscope, which was really nice. It did the job nicely. And so you can either use transmission or reflective light. At least one is 1/r if you're looking at it versus the reflective nature of the data. So
Okay. Well, let me interrupt now. I mean, you just got my excitement level up. Is it possible, because they have like human scaling, they look like human, but the differences are they've never been cut.
Sure.
There's a naturally worn end, lack of medulla, which some humans, especially in the Asian culture, have less medulla.
Sure.
So would there be a way to create a signature, a morphology, spatial signature for human hair and gorilla hair and bonobo hair and orang hair and then maybe Bigfoot hair? And is it possible they would have a different, like you mentioned this, I don't even understand it yet.
That's textural analysis versus spectral analysis.
Well,
If you're
no, but
looking
some
at
kind
this-
of spectral analysis. Huh?
Yeah. So the spectra really depends, and depends on the range. You would have to look at different ranges probably. Textural analysis you can do. Theoretically, you might see differences, but it's hard to say without me knowing exactly the anatomy of the specific target that you're looking at.
Yeah.
It also sometimes age might change some things. It depends. It's just a matter of diving into and kind of looking at the metadata versus the actual data that you're looking at on the target. It's kind of like when I used to correlate in forensics. I was a member of the American Academy of Forensic Science for a really long time.
Wow.
And when you look at the data, you want to compare it to something that's a known, right? So there's things in chemistry that work. We've been using it for a really long time, and it's got a specific efficacy, and its reliability is in the 90th percentile that it does this, right? Well, they were wanting to find more non-destructive ways to do that, because if you're looking at evidence and you're using chemistry, you're destroying the sample. So what I would do is take hyperspectral, and I would do a linear correlation between the original science they were doing and seeing that every time they see this at some reliability, I see this same thing over here every time I image that target. I can then correlate and say that's what that is. And so now you can continue to look at the sample without destroying it, because it's non-invasive, it's non-destructive. Right. So
that's really interesting. So, I mean, theoretically, I'm just talking once again, brain diarrhea.
Sure.
In theory, would it be possible maybe to get some kind of morphology, light spectrum morphology on Bigfoot hairs if I supplied you 10 different samples from 10 different hairs? Because they all do have things in common.
Yeah,
They're,
in theory.
In theory. Okay, I love that, because that's what this is all about, just testing things and looking for that breakthrough.
You brought up something earlier that piqued my interest a little bit when we're talking about auditory kind of wave perspective. Some years ago, I went to the Department of Defense with an idea, which was in the AI machine learning perspective. And I was going to get together with the Technological Institute in Israel, because they have the world's largest biosphere, right? The idea was I was going to take a hardware sphere on one side and a biosphere on the other side, so that you can change the environment, change what you're putting inside of it. Like you can put a Bigfoot hair in the Sahara Desert, whatever, inside the sphere over here. And on the other side, you have the hardware that's detecting what's in the sphere. And then in the middle, you have this error rate thing where you put everything into it and say, okay, now sort out the errors based on what we know and based on what you're seeing from an AI perspective.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you had these sounds of Bigfoot that they think that that's what it is, there has to be some connection to anatomy. There has to be some connection to genetic variants, such as, you know, what a wolf sounds like. But are there differences within different breeds of wolves? And then if you look at the anatomy, are there some creatures that actually have the ability to use either side of their vocal cord? You know, and that's what creates that sound. You should be able to filter that through some kind of event of AI and connect that to anatomy versus sound, and maybe come up with some kind of scheme as to what that might actually be, or what it might actually be made thereof. So things like that are the kinds of things I think about, is that those are that's where AI can really come in as being really useful from that sphere perspective.
Yeah, AI is not being used really in Bigfoot research at this point, other than maybe mapping and using GIS data to figure out, you know, where's the most likely place you're going to have an encounter.
Sure,
you know, the same kind of technology they use for oil hunting.
That's all the GIS stuff.
Yeah, the GIS stuff. But
some LiDAR.
We're using, like David Ellis, he's really good, and there's a couple other people in the field. They use spectrographs.
Yep.
And there seems to be a missing fundamental with Bigfoot sounds, Bigfoot speech, you know, if you can call it speech. There seems to be a missing fundamental, which is really interesting to me. And that's one of the things we're really going to dive deep in Legend Meets Science, because that missing fundamental cannot be imitated by a human trying to fake a Bigfoot sound. You know, yeah, you can breathe in and talk and do weird things, but that fundamental still shows up as being human. We've tested that. Whereas the authentic, like the Sierra sounds, it's missing. Well, how in the world would, you know, Ron Moorhead and Al Berry in the 70s, before any of this technology even was around, figure out how to make a fundamental missing, and back in, and then in 2024 they're going to discover this? Yeah, right.
So you have the one thing you also have a problem with auditory too is atmosphere. Atmosphere is also an issue, as well as distance and whatever target it's bouncing off of in reflectance. It's kind of like with optical, you have issues too. Atmosphere is a big issue.
Yeah.
You know, when you're cutting through atmosphere from a plane, it's a big difference than when you're cutting through atmosphere when I'm sitting on a copy stand, right? So there is a scatter issue that occurs, and that could change the sound a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that that's disproving what you're saying. I'm just saying that those things also have to be taken into account whenever you're analyzing these things, because you have to take the pros and the cons and try to determine what it is that you're actually listening to and what that actually means. So in theory, again, it could be. We haven't, you know, some people say they've seen the Bigfoot. I've never seen one.
Right.
I'm not going to say that they're not there, because in theory, they could be there. So, but I agree with you that it's interesting that there's these sounds and that they can't correlate back to knowns, right? Which that's what piques and intrigues us as scientists and just people who are really interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I definitely cannot wait to for you to meet David Ellis and kind of get you up to speed on what some of it is. We have 8,500 recordings.
Nice.
That have all been looked at, you know, on a spectrograph, and they look odd. And then we find the same sound in one locale in another state. That, nice. There's that exact signature in this state, but they don't match to any known animal. And they're distinct and kind of weird sounding. So
it'd be interesting to get distance measurements. Like if they know where the sound is recorded, in what location, you could pinpoint what the distance might have been of some of these specific sounds based on the pitch. You don't necessarily have to mimic exactly what it is, but you can at least get somewhere within the pitch range and try to figure out, you know.
Does one need? I don't know. It looks like he froze up, Alex.
Yeah. I'm gonna shoot him a message.
Maybe he'll unfreeze. Can you just knock on the screen? Just knock on the screen. That'll do it. Dang it. Darn government got us again.
They don't even protect their own.
No. Anyhow. Well, that stinks. Well, you can just click the same link and get right back in.
Yeah, it looks like I lost you there for a moment.
Yeah, good. Hey, you're
back. You're back.
So you know, I'm also a former administrator. I've worked on everything from Unix boxes to everything else, so I'm able to fix such problems.
Sweet. Yeah, that's so. I was joking. I said, the government got us again.
I'll tell you a quick story about that. Which you bringing that up, it's kind of funny. So I used to travel to China a lot. And so I did some work on the Terracotta Warrior collection and the Forbidden City back walls, and also some of one beautiful place was Dazhu. It's a mountain carved out by the Chinese.
Have all the terracotta statues been unearthed now?
No, they're still digging that stuff up. And the funny thing is they were found by accident. It was a couple of farmers that were looking for water, and they saw a couple of heads in the hole, and they freaked out, and they went running the other way because there's a couple heads sitting there where they're trying to find water. So it's kind of an interesting story there.
How many? I know. I hate to change this up. How many of those were there, or do they think there are? There's like thousands.
I don't know the amount, but I can tell you my experience there, which was really, really cool, because they don't let just anybody that comes over from the US get close to it. But I had the white gloves on and everything, but they brought out a 1600-year-old terracotta artifact and let me get like this close to it. And I imaged it to find the Han purple and the Han red pigments on it, because they couldn't see it anymore. But I was able to pull it off with spectra to see where they were. But stuff like that is.
So is that? Could you hypothetically then do a recreation? Then, if you knew where the colors used to be, the pigments.
You got a smart young man over here. The fact is that what we were doing, for example, at Dazhu, I was imaging on scaffolding the Gua Ying in the wall of 1,007 hands. I was imaging the pigments that were on the Gua Ying and on the wall. And then I was going down to where they were making the new pigments and imaging the materials and the pigments to try to match as close to the ancient pigments as possible based on that mixture of unmixing of the wavelength. So that was exactly what we were trying to do, so that we can make it look as close to the original as possible.
Wow. So like super authentic. Like.
Yes. So I think I got misguided there for a moment. What was the original premise of what we were talking about?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is going to be the diarrhea conversation of diarrhea conversations.
Okay, as long as we're in the diarrhea conversation area, we're good.
We're good, man. This is a free for all.
So hypothetically, if you were painting your house and wanted to match a color.
So that's where when you go to Home Depot, back when I was at NASA back in the 90s, I was working with a company called Sensormatic and another company called Iridex and another one X-Rite. Okay. And a lot of those, so I think it's X-Rite that actually makes the little device at the Home Depots and Lowe's that mixes your paint. So when you put that little color swatch into there, it looks at it and it kind of gives you what it is you're looking for and then gives you the recipe for mixing it. That's based on spectra. That's so our the hyperspectral that I had was being used to refine that process.
Wow.
I imagine, though, the accuracy of something like that at a Lowe's is nowhere near what you could do with really high-end equipment.
Well, what's great about the high-end equipment is that you could create what's called a derivative thereof and make it more accurate. So like when there's one other project, which was a really hard project, is I worked with the USDA to look at poultry going down the line and try to find the contamination on it so people wouldn't get sick. we started with hyperspectral, and we brought that down to 4 bands to look for, and we found it every time. It just comes down to what's going to make the process accurate and what wavelength, so that you can make it smaller, faster, and cheaper.
Is there a merging of sound and light ever?
A merging of sound and light?
And light, yeah, and light frequency, visible, what we can see, and then what we can hear. Is there a merging between the two, an overlap?
No, I believe it's only I believe those things only occur in space, but they're separate on their measurement frequencies.
Okay,
right?
they're completely. Is it possible? I mean, have you ever thought about that? Ever wondered could sound affect light someday? Actual light.
Well, I've thought about things like how sound affects a target that changes how light sees it. But that's a little bit different. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the merging of energy is, a different theory than measuring that thereof, and it's changed based on some other frequencies, some other type of energy. It's kind of like using electricity versus RF in a pool space of liquid. You can change things that way. I tend to find, like, I work sometimes with materials that you might have graphene or something like that is wrapped around the nanotube, for example. It reacts differently depending on how well it's covered. It reacts differently to electricity versus an RF wave, for example.
I always think about sound bending a light wave, or like a laser beam, visible light wave, and sound somehow making the light flutter or change. Not the object making the light, but the actual light wave. You think that's impossible, maybe? Or
I'm one of those people that never say anything's impossible. Put it this way, I'm the person that was sitting at NASA. So I'll tell you a little bit of backstory.
Please.
So I was a musician on the road touring, and my now wife and I decided to settle down. And I figured then, well, I don't make any money touring as a musician on the road. So I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get a job and all that kind of stuff. So I answered this. I started at a junior college. Started in computer science, ended up in computer science, business, and biosciences. And basically, I got a job from a temporary ad that they were looking for from a Boeing company, where they were trying to look at airborne multispectral at fields for prescription crop maps. And so I took the job. It was only supposed to be temporary for the summer, but I learned so much over that summer and was doing all their stuff there that they couldn't get rid of me. So they took me on full time. And when they went to Denver, Colorado, where they moved to, where Boeing wanted us all to go, they referred me to NASA. And that's how I ended up at NASA. And so I was at NASA, and was put underneath a Chinese scientist named Dr. Cheng-Yi Mao, who was working on something new called smaller hyperspectral imaging systems. 6 months later, that scientist stood up at the meeting table and said, "I'm leaving. I'm going to work for a camera company." And me, wet behind the ears, stood up and said, "I'll take it." And here I am. So, what I ended up doing is I took over that program with my team, and we went, and I took it to where it could be understood from the software perspective and the hardware perspective by more of the layman rather than those who did. So what I'm getting to is I was working with a lot of physicists.
Wow.
And the physicists were around me, said, "Well, that can't be done according to whatever physics law, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Is that the same book you were reading that said you couldn't have more than 2 moons around a moon?" And they got mad. They got up and walked out through because that was disproved. And what I always point back to them is even Einstein said, "I came up with these theories, but I want someone to disprove the theories and make them better. If you can make them better, they're only theories, they'll become new theories, and then therefore humankind will be better for it." So,
it sounds like what you're saying is it's not, we don't ever have the answer. We just have this is the best answer we have right now.
Yeah, and some things are slated as fact until you can change that. Theories are meant to be worked on and be improved. It's like the thermodynamics perspective around, Einstein's stuff. There's still holes in it, but he was brilliant, and for his time, goodness gracious, he came up with some fantastically brilliant things. But that's all for us to learn from and to extrapolate from and make better.
Do you ever get in your own way, Mark, where you know so much, you go, that won't work? Because you know what I mean? You're so educated that you just kind of go, oh, that doesn't work. Because I remember when I was a kid and I was working on that new polymer, I was told by everybody, there's no way to do what you want to do. It's impossible. And I was too dumb to know I couldn't do it. And I did it. And I had a really big breakthrough with a new coating system recently where a paint that will stretch as far as the substrate, and meaning you could paint something that's 1 inch long and stretch it to 30 and the paint doesn't let loose. You don't have to prime it. You don't have to process it. And I've got that now and I don't know what to do with it. But once again, I tried some things I don't think any scientist had ever tried. I think that's the reason it didn't get done, because they talked themselves out of it because they're so educated.
Well, you're right, actually, because what I do teach, and I do teach students, I usually tell them, think about things simply first. If you get too complicated and you get too complicated into the laws of things, not beyond safety, of course, don't put that chemical with that if don't blow yourself up. But if you're looking at things, look at it from a simplistic perspective and don't put yourself in the box. And if you don't know the answer, remember, teams are based on finding the strengths where you are weak. And if you just keep that perspective, then you'll be able to do those things. I don't let the education things get in the way, because there's still so much more to learn. And there's so much to learn from people who don't even have that kind of educational background. You always have to be open to learn. And you always have to first take the simplest approach first, because it might just work. And so, and what's the hurt? If it's not hurting anybody else, what's the hurt in not working? You're just going to find out, hey, that doesn't work. Try something else. I would agree with you. I think sometimes people that's why also, like in hyperspectral, for example, people are still looking at the same things I was looking at in 96.
Yeah, right.
I mean, back in 96, I was looking at back in the late 90s, I was looking at the lymphatic system and vein mapping. I don't know if you've ever seen that hand that's up like this with all the colors on it on the internet. It says hyperspectral of an arm. But that was my team. That was us that actually did that the first time, looking at mapping for a medical university to look and see if there was a better way to stick the needle in so that they could be more accurate with it. So it was looking at like a vein mapping perspective.
Well, it's weird. I was working on vein mapping with Alan, and we were just using really, really bright light.
Sure.
Just super bright light to see.
But was it working across melanin distribution as well? Was it working?
I couldn't tell you anything. All I know is you could see all the veins and all the capillaries and everything, just beautiful. We could pretty much do
use polarization. You'd be seeing
a live
better.
X-ray. Yeah, like a live, harmless X-ray on somebody to look for blood clots and all sorts of things.
Sure, and it depends on your depth of penetration and polarizing out the scatter. Because like rosacea, for example, you can't see the small vessels of rosacea if you're just using the regular xenon or halogen light, because the scatter that domes over your skin, it masks it. But if you dual polarize it, boom, you see them all. They just pop right out.
That's so cool. Anyhow, I mean, we have a lot in common, Mark, but we don't even know what yet. And once again, I am not formally educated in the way you are at all. Not even close. I mean, I'm like way down in the, I'm down in the seaweed, and you're way up there. But I still think that, God, there's some projects I still think that we could do together. Yeah. I do, because, man, I need somebody like you that understands the fine points of all this. You're going to be sorry you met me, Mark. I guarantee it. You're going to regret. You're going to damn.
I like meeting people. I told you I could talk to a tree, man. So
oh, geez,
we're good.
So okay. So mainly in light, right? That you've worked.
Mhm.
And why are you interested so much in being able to detect paranormal activity? And I don't even understand what's going through your head, so you're going to have to explain. I want to hear what's going through your damn head.
Well,
because I've
yeah.
experienced paranormal activity. I did it the other night, and it would sure have been nice to have a freaking sensor go off. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, so no, I'm interested in everything from the energy to the spatial domain to unmixing in the dark, like noise unmixing and things like that, so that you can look at spatial pattern, spectral pattern, energy pattern, things like that can give you a better understanding of what's there in front of you. Like even LiDAR has been shown to see some things that you wouldn't necessarily see on your own.
Let's talk about that real quick, the LiDAR thing. I first heard about that with the early Teslas that produced, they had a camera LiDAR, and then people were parking in front of a graveyard.
Right.
And apparently, have you heard about this?
I haven't heard about that, but they're actually a lot of that's also what's interesting because you were talking about earlier about technology changes. There's actually going to be some changes in the LiDAR in the future too, because the scientists are becoming much better with substrates and the mixing of elements. So when we get to there, you'll be able to also use different wavelengths in the laser, which would also give you a much better perspective and distance on the LiDARs as well. So, but I've never heard that before. But that's kind of the whole premise. That, and it's in my book. I finished, as we talked about, I finished my book. It's going through the editing process. There were people over my life said, you need to have a book written about your crazy freaking life, starting from when I was born on 6/6/66. It's all been a crazy train ever since. So basically, I was always into I'm very spiritual. I am a Christian. I have faith, but we're not going to get deep into the religious part. I never do that on social media either. I believe everybody should have a free space for everything. And so I'm just really into it because I was sensitive as a child, heavily sensitive as well. There were things that I saw that your normal everyday kid would have got. What? So that's what intrigued me starting from being a child. And really got me not just into that whole thing, but got me into symbolism and all these kinds. I'm into all that.
But I want to know what your end. I
So.
want to know what your end goal is, Mark, and then we can
my end goal
backtrack from
is
there.
my end goal is to do what we talked about earlier. I like the linear correlation between data. You have people running around saying, oh, I got a breath. Well, a breath is a reflective nature that can bounce off a wall if you're in an area that is able to bounce it and it come back to a 3D recorder. And yeah, you've got, so I want to be able to correlate those data points and say, this happened when that happened with this energy. There you go. You can't disprove it because it's inside a cage, which you can't mess with. It doesn't matter if you're clicking a walkie-talkie. So I want, that's where I want it to be.
So what you're saying is the paranormal, whether let's just say ghost, it affects certain things, makes the air colder. There could be mist. It could be temperature. It could be whatever.
Electroflux, it could be anything.
Yeah, it could be an EMP meter going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is you want to correlate all this and capture multiple things at one time. Is that
in a way that is not interfered with? Like for instance, let's say you have a REM pod and you stick a REM pod on the table, you got enough people close enough clicking walkie-talkies, that thing's going to go. It's going to go all over the place.
Yeah,
and that's because there's, again, energy interference. It's also based on detection of the interference. So, I want to eliminate that stuff and say, no, there is no way that it's anything else because it's in that space. This is what's detected and it's correlating to these three other points. So therefore you have, and that goes back to my forensic days, I guess. I want a valid data point that says, you cannot dispute this data point. It's kind of like if we took that hair that you had and said, no, it's different than everything else, and this is why. You have several correlations to that to say this is a data point. You can't refute that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Is there also, I mean, have you thought about also ways to attract the paranormal? Is there I don't know where your brain's going, Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm certainly not going to use a Ouija board.
No, I won't either. Yeah, no. I did that once when I was young. That was the end of that crap. That was enough of that crap for sure.
Yeah. No seances and Ouija boards.
I agree.
So I think what you're talking about is the mosquito trap theory, right? It's like,
I'm talking about is there a frequency that plays that?
The bear to the honey. Yeah. So that would be another level of things, right? Because you have to kind of prove that that's happening. You can do that by correlating the data points and saying it's happening there, but then you have to say, but what's bringing them here? So, those are two totally different things, right? I mean, so once you know something's there, now you can't say it's Bob, or you can't say it's a ghost, or you can't say it's a demon, or you can't say it's whatever, but you can say there's something here that's not supposed to be there, and it's within this space, and then you're relying on history of that space and anything else. And since this vast universe and all the dimensions and everything else, it's hard to say what came in and what went out and where it came from. So those are all very valid questions, but those are really, really up there on the scale of figuring that out. So,
do you think things like, we're going to talk about more on Bigfoot, just so people know, more on ghosts and more on like aliens. I want to talk. We've got a jillion questions.
Right.
Okay. Do you think when a ghost comes into a room, it leaves something behind that's more, evidentiary? Like a person for sure cannot walk into a room and not leave body dust and lint and things we just have, tiny microscopic things behind. Do you think that's the same with a ghost?
It's hard to say. That's an energy transfer, or some people would say like plasma or whatever. But I don't know. I don't really know that answer. It would have to be supported with data.
Yeah. But do you want that answer, Mark?
I always want an answer to all the things that people don't have an answer to. That's kind of the whole idea of being intrigued by science and the things that we don't understand and don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I mean,
we're not omnipotent, so we have to kind of figure it out by due process.
Do you ever wonder why paranormal activity will happen at a certain time of day, a certain place? Like once in a while, I can go 2 years, 3 years, and nothing will happen. Then all of a sudden, bam, it all starts. And then it's real short-lived. But the point is, why? Why did that happen then?
Yeah, I think there's several levels that I think some people are more sensitive. I think in other cases, I believe some of the things like the traveling spirit, for example. I was sitting on a call with some friends talking about something, and one of the psychics on the call actually looked over my shoulder and said, "There's somebody standing behind you." And I was on a Zoom call. And she said, "Do you know anyone named Charles?" And I was like, "Oh man, the only Charles I knew was I was a young kid in New Jersey, and he protected me because I was a little squirt, at that school. I was at a parochial school, and he befriended me, and he was like the biggest, baddest dude in the school, and I didn't have to worry about anything." And she said, "Well, yeah, he just passed away recently, and he's been checking into you from time to time because he always wondered what happened to you and how you were doing, and he's really proud of what he sees." I didn't think anything of it at the time, but then I decided, I'm going to look up that guy Charles Golembeski from New Jersey. Sure enough, he just died that October, right before our call, and it just flipped me out. I was just like, it's kind of like stories like that, who's checking in on you and stuff like that. So,
what do you make of to me, the most intriguing paranormal experiences are when somebody doesn't know somebody's dead. They get
Right.
together with them, they run into them at a bar, a restaurant, and they have a long, hour-long conversation with them. And they are as flesh and blood, as real could be. And then they go home, they say, I talked to Uncle Louie, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's been dead for 5 days.
Yeah. That's I call that the closure visit usually.
I understand, but isn't there some matter? I mean, how did the guy see him as a solid object, a solid human? You would think there'd be some matter there.
Yeah, especially if nobody else saw him, right? So I think a lot of
they
times
they didn't ask. I'm sure if
right.
they had that information, they would have. But
well, it's like, for example, I'll give you another interesting story, and this is one that can be corroborated by a friend of mine. Is I was at home, we were getting ready, a partner and I were getting ready to go to a big photonics convention in San Francisco. And it was for getting prepared for a pitch we were giving to DARPA. We had 5 program managers, and we were the only small business with the technology that was going up against Lockheed, Raytheon, a bunch of the big ones. And so we got together to talk about it, and then he left, and we were going to go the next day to go to San Francisco. Well, after he left, I walked to our back master bedroom, and there's this girl sitting on my bed, my wife in my bed, sitting right in the middle, Indian style, with her hair. She looked like the hair looked like the grunge girl, the hair right in front of the face with the eye looking out. She had a real frizzy, looked like a tattered dress. And I looked away and I asked, who are you? And I heard Elizabeth. It wasn't volume in the room. It was just in my head, Elizabeth. I looked back and she was gone. I left, and the next day I was at the conference, and my friend and I, my partner, we went up to the top floor to have dinner before the conference the next day. And I'm telling him about this crazy story. And the whole time I'm talking to him, his eyeballs are about as big as golf balls. And I look at him and said, "What's the matter?" He said, he says, "I'm usually a skeptic, but I bought a antebellum home back in the day in Franklin, Tennessee, myself and my wife back then before we got divorced. And I was renovating it, and I kept having these weird things happen, and were happening to my wife at home as well. And it just got so bad when I opened up the wall where the fireplace used to be. There was a big fireplace there, like one of those old fireplaces that they had covered up. I was starting to get more and more activity in there. Something was tugging on my pant leg and stuff like that. So I finally just went, and I didn't believe in this stuff, but I went and got a local psychic. And they came there and they said, he's told me there was a girl there, a 12-year-old girl who backed up into the fireplace. Her dress caught fire and she died. Her name was Elizabeth. And apparently this girl attached to him. And when he came down to see me, saw my children there, which were my 2 girls, said, "Oh, look, there's children here. I'm going to hang for a while." And so anyway, that was the story there, and then my daughter and my wife ended up seeing her too, while I was gone. So it was pretty interesting story, and it can be corroborated by somebody else, but it happened, and people can call me crazy, but I see what I see, and I say what I say because it's what happened. So
yeah, of course you're not crazy. I mean, this is the way it works. It's just too bad we don't have any answers as to what are we seeing. Are we actually seeing something physical? Are we seeing a memory, a pattern from a time glitch?
I think it's both. I think some instances are opening of time rifts. I think other instances are that maybe it's just like I heard the voice in my head and didn't actually hear it. Maybe it's also projection. It could be a lot of things. So,
do you think she saw you? I knew you were there.
She was looking at me with her one eye. So I'd imagine that she probably saw me. Yeah.
Is it possible you were a ghost to her? In other
See,
words,
now you're talking dimensional theory, in which I love that stuff.
yeah,
You know,
because somebody had mentioned
is
about how
God
you
in the 11th
feel about.
dimension, right? I mean, so it's like, you know, you got to look at all these dimensions and that small rift of the veil in between those things and say,
All right, what is your guess? How many dimensions are there? Let's start there. What's your best
you
guess?
know, I'm not sure, but I do believe that there's, you know, everybody talks about 6 and 7 and everything else like that, but there could be up to 11 of them. You know, I mean, it's hard to say. There's again, it's theory. It's kind of like what, you know, Einstein had theories. You know, theories about how there's theories about time travel. There's theories about rifts in time. There's theories about holes. There's theories about what black holes have on the other side of it. So there's theories about whether there was actually mass or just photons before everything blew up and then became what we see now.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah, does nothing have any mass to it?
From nothing. Yeah, so.
My dad used to tell me, yeah, he said at one point there was nothing. It basically wanted to know about itself, so it had to split in two. And I'm this little kid going, huh?
Yeah. Maybe the nothing touched dimensional space that had something that then became collectively something altogether.
Well, do you believe that opposites cannot exist without each other? Because, you know, really, hot water can't exist without cold. You wouldn't know. Right. It's like so much evidence of. You look at a leaf, there's a right and a left side. Sure. Look at a human. Look at us. We have a line right down our bodies, right and left. There's so much evidence of opposites being needed to allow the other side to exist. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the yin, the yang, the other polar opposite in the other dimension. All those things are definitely intriguing. And those are things that, you know, we think about. So I'm that kind of person that's sleeping, right? And I'm like, I wrote a song in my sleep and I have to get up and I have to write it down. Or I was thinking about that substrate beforehand and what its behavior was going to be and whether you can bundle carbon nanotubes to spit a photon and bring another photon at multiple wavelengths, you know, it's crap like that. You know, it sometimes keeps you up at night, right? So.
Well, the real question, are there an infinite amount of marks out there, all doing something similar but a little different?
Oh, I don't wish that on the world.
Do you think that's a good possibility, though? That there's many of all of us.
Yeah. I want to find the one of me that has the least issues that they have to lock in the closet and have a talk with them and see if we could just kind of talk this out.
Okay, Lanoue, do you think it's a possibility or not?
I think it's a possibility.
And endless, like not 11 dimensions, endless.
There could be endless.
Infinity mirror.
Yeah. Especially outside of time as well. I mean, you know, time is our nemesis, but only in this space, right? So
yeah, that's. I wonder about all these things. I literally have to stick an earphone in my ear at night, even if it's 4 or 5 in the morning, and I haven't slept in 3 days. I still have to distract my brain so I can.
Is it green, brown, or pink noise that you're now using?
I don't use any of those. I use just somebody talking. Then I focus on what they're talking about, and then it keeps my brain occupied so my body can fall asleep. Otherwise, my brain keeps my body awake. Okay, so have you ever experienced a time glitch, Mark, yourself?
I don't think. Well, I have lost track of time a couple times in my life, but it hasn't happened a lot. But it has happened.
No, I'm talking about where you you set something down, it's gone. You know damn well you set it down, or something.
I've had that happen maybe once. Yes.
Oh, okay. And do you think that may have been? I mean, I've done the thing where, you know, you'll see people like coming towards you out of an elevator. This happened to me and my daughter. Very distinct. We get in the elevator, we go down, and we get outside the hotel, and here comes that same group walking towards us. My daughter looked at me and goes, glitch. Because there's no way there's 2 families that look just like that, right?
Yep. So are you in the Matrix?
Exactly. Well,
who's the one?
And that's another thought too. And is this all a simulation? Everything? Are we in a giant video game? I sure hope that.
I sure hope that we're going to be better off at doing this before we have the simulations, because I can tell you, even AI, I have to tell it that it's programming wrong. We don't have it down yet.
No, we don't. No, I can't even use AI to draw Bigfoot because it's got 6 fingers all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, really? And it can't do the same image twice in a different position. And there's a lot of problems with AI right now. Have you been using AI for quite a while in your career?
I've talked to people about projects in AI, which are higher order projects, and I've worked with some people in academia that are really good at doing like facial recognition with AI and background noise removal with AI, and looking for like pests and stuff with AI, where you have to use specific types of camera and flashing light strobe kind of technology. But I've used some of the, like, the art AI and some of the motion video AI and things like that are available on the internet. And I tried to use the programming perspective in like Chat GPT, but I have to go back and go, but wait, why would you run a loop like that? It makes no sense. And why did you not change the variable that's different? It's different from the top to the bottom. You never do that in programming. What are you doing? So it's not fail safe. It's still programmed by humans. It still has error rates and biases in it, and it's just not there yet.
It goes off the rails really quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
That was well put, Alex. It goes off the rails.
Going off the rails like a crazy train.
Okay. All right. Let's switch gears to some scary realizations. Recently, I was watching, I think it was Tucker Carlson on some, his own channel or whatever, and he was talking about aliens and disclosure and documents that he read that said it scared the living crap out of him. And people are mentioning this spiritual aspect to, like, aliens, UFOs, and maybe some of these mysteries that maybe the government does have some insight in. What do you think they're talking about when they're discussing this very scary side as to what UFOs are here for, or UAPs, or the aliens? Why are they here? Have you had thoughts on that, personal thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, so first of all, I've never seen an alien. I have seen a UFO that was corroborated by the police department in Lincoln Park, New Jersey. I was 14. We were going through an area that was being developed that was like, over a mountain pass, where they had a street through that they called Skyline Drive, and it was always dark. I mean, like really dark there. There were no street lights. And I was in the back seat with some friends from the area, and my aunt was driving, and her friend was in front. We looked to the left, and coming up right out of the trees, because there's trees on both sides, because it was one of those mountain pass roads that was going through there. Out of the trees comes this craft, your typical, saucer-looking kind of craft with lights going around it, in circles.
So it's spectacular.
And at first we was thinking, oh, it's got to be a blimp. But then it started doing all kinds of weird moves. That's like, that's not a blimp. And then it started like changing speeds and stuff like that. And then it started hovering over the city. So we went back to our friend's house, and our friends were EMTs. So they had like the police scanner in their house. We went there, and all our friends making fun of us and all that kind of stuff. And then this police scanner came on and said, there is an unidentified flying object in the area. We are following it right now. More reports coming. And so they were all freaking out because they had to leave and go home. It's dark outside. I just told them there's a craft in the sky. But that was my UFO experience with my family and some friends.
Well, that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But as far as the alien perspective, it's kind of like the other things we talked about: dimensional space, time rifts. Is there a spiritual component? Well, there's people that have come forward and said they've seen different types of aliens, of different anatomy, different looks, different behaviors,
Yeah.
different moods, things like that. And I think that a lot of them is my theory. Again, it's just theory. Since a lot of them are coming out of our oceans, they're saying, and out of our mountains and always around in the area, I personally think it's probably us in the future coming back to see what the heck we did to screw this crap up. And because a lot of times they see these, they have these big eyes. Well, why they have big eyes? Because if you have ash in the sky, like with the dinosaurs, it keeps the sun out. If you have, other problems like nuclear issues, you might have creatures that have large eyes, they need more light, that have polarized lenses on them because of the scatter from the debris. Maybe they see in a different wavelength, all that kind of stuff. So it's really comes down to those kind of things. Now, the spiritual aspect, I think they're time travelers that are coming back to see, and then they go back through the portal to go back. But there could be that there's a spiritual component because, as you know, some of the mediums will say,
well, is that okay? Well, let me interrupt you. Is that scary or comforting? Because if they're time travelers, couldn't they fix some of the scripts we did, or do you think that's off limits?
I think so. There's two theories to that thing about going back in time and changing things, and the other theory is that it is as it is, and you can come back and do what you want, but it's still going to happen, right? So there's two theories to that. It doesn't really scare me, because at the end of the day, if somebody changes something before you, you're not going to know it anyway, right? So if you're either here or you're not. Like, my existence is an interesting riff in time because my family, I was the firstborn here of immigrants. They were kicked out of Indonesia. They had to go to Holland. They ended up there for 2 years and then ended up coming to the United States and were sponsored by another family. And here I am, so everything has a trajectory, and those are all based on events that are happening in time. And so it is what it is. If it's changed and you're not here, you're not here.
Right.
You're not going to care. Right. So
that's true. I mean, it is kind of frightening to think we might be alone. That's
yeah. I would much rather not be alone and keep the intrigue going. I actually think it's quite intriguing. I don't like to see people upset because they've been probed or they've been abducted or whatever. Yeah. But at the same token, it's just intriguing to know that whether there's time traveling or there's spirits coming in another form, or I'd hate to think they're demons coming in another form. That'd be
well, okay. Would okay? It makes sense for abductions. Right. If people from the far future are coming back in time,
sure,
they could want their DNA could be so screwed up they want to get fresh DNA from the earlier versions of them. Is that possible?
Well, yeah, they may also want a back study. For example, there have been some cases where they said they found blood that had plant DNA in it, right? And if you go to other planets, you're going to find microbes and things that are different because of the adaptation perspective of the environment that they're in. So if you change the environment here through adaptation and survival, they're going to change into something else, right? Yeah. So it could be that there's flesh and plant that ultimately has some fusion. I don't know.
Well, isn't it scary that we've maybe evolved, if you're correct, into these insectoid-looking, non-emotional, skinny little useless-looking creatures?
Well, if you look at the trajectory of society, right? Men are losing testosterone, and
it's already happening.
People don't take the time to look at history, look at what's happening before them, to see how both the history and the biohistory changes over time, and then correlate that to what other things they see and what might happen in the future. Because they just don't tie those things together, because every day is just I'm in my bubble, and and did you see what happened on TikTok? So I mean, I'm not saying those things are fun and everything, but we can't lose sight of the fact that the stuff could blow up around you, change around you,
Yeah.
And we won't get into carbon dioxide and methane distribution. That's a whole other conversation. I don't even want to go.
Well, yeah, that is it's controversial. Carbon dioxide alone, we could talk about carbon dioxide all night. Just that one little element.
Neutral, non-neutral. How much? How
Yeah.
much is actually in the atmosphere? Wait a minute. Why is the ocean bubbling? Anyway.
Who knows? Do you think that all the cryptids that people see, and I'm going to tell you, I thought it was BS, the Mothman.
Mhm.
You know, I was asked to do a Mothman episode for Monster Quest, and I said, well, there's
Right.
nothing. It's nothing there. It's not, you know, there's no physical evidence. There's nothing to do with science. There's nothing I can do with it. And then we're driving home down 35W, south of Cloquet, Minnesota. Something drops out of the sky. It heads towards my windshield. Gets, you know, it's heading right for the windshield, lit up in the headlights. Clearly, we see some kind of a gargoyle-y kind of creature with wings that span the entire width of the freeway. And it came right to the windshield. And then, you know, obviously it didn't hit the windshield. I ducked. She ducked. But my point is, it dropped out of the sky with its wings wide open. It's completely straight down like a spider and stopped. And then headed toward the car. Defied physics. Completely. What in the world are we dealing with? Is that some kind of a alien creature that's mastered technology? Is it truly a cryptid that lives in the, you know, it's here 24/7? God, I hope not. You know, what are we dealing with when is it part of the video game? It's just a joke, you know, it's just somebody programmed this into the simulation to keep us entertained.
So it's hard. Again, it's hard to say because with this kind of surveillance we have now, other than the technology, even with LiDAR, for example, where they can now look through the canopies of trees, where before our biggest problem was that, like, for instance, the people who wanted to grow weed would grow them below a tree because you couldn't see it with optical imaging because it was underneath the canopy, right? Now they can see this stuff with LiDAR and with you know, those kind of technologies. So it's going to get harder and harder for things to hide unless they're underground or in the water.
Yeah, we're closing in.
So
we're closing
because we
in,
can't
Mark.
see down deep in the water. We're still not able to go down into those depths because of the pressure issues and things like that. You know, the flat earthers, they may have a different perspective, but anyways, it's a whole different thing. So yeah.
So, is it just possible they're just other dimensional creatures and they're kind of
it is possible.
Maybe metaphysical, they come in and they disappear. And how would you explain a metaphysical creature?
So metaphysical is different in that you're changing your whole morphology and the homeostatic perspective of your body and like disappearing and coming back somewhere else and coming back into form, you know, more like the Star Trek kind of
teleportation,
where, you know, of course, portal is a whole different ball game, time perspective of portal. So I think that those things could possibly happen, shifts in time, portals, you know, things that appear like that and disappear. It's quite possible, and it's beyond some of our ability to comprehend that because we haven't studied enough and haven't seen it enough, and sometimes can't see it at all. And so you kind of have to have these little pinpoints that you get every now and then, try to figure it out from there, and that just really leads to a lot of speculation.
Yeah,
as to what's actually happening. It's intriguing, but it's still speculation.
Have you ever wondered, Alex and Mark, what if all of that stuff is true? What if we're being visited by our past? We're being visited by extraterrestrials from other planets.
Sure.
There's a jillion dimensions, and there's just 11 dimensions. And what if all of this shit's true, and that's why it's so damn confusing?
Yeah. I want to ask them if they're using crypto.
What if they're doing that too? Yeah.
Well, if it's simulation, anything's possible.
And by the way, Christopher, yes, I owe you lunch. You'll have to come to Minnesota to get it, though. I'll buy you the biggest, best lunch you ever had. But I do owe you lunch, yes. But isn't that, though, true that the confusion could come from the fact that many of these things could be true and all happening simultaneously?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mean to be a bummer, but I'm gonna have to go soon. I actually have to take care of some things before.
No problem. We're good. We definitely got to have you back, Mark.
Yep, absolutely.
And we can go into some other little rabbit holes. And with that, thanks much, Mark. We appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody hanging around to listen to me gab.
Oh yeah, no,
it was a lot of
fun. Thanks, Mark.
You guys have a wonderful evening.
All right, yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
I call you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in my 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should start falling, we'll head on home again. Everybody else can see where we belong. Oh, ain't no ordinary love we got going on. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I'll pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait for the time when we'll be together every day. But I know if ever we'll be led astray, that I'll find my way back home to you again. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait if ever you should be in doubt.